level. And your upside is the exact same, recovering all the way to the peak of 2020 or the 2022 open, not to all-time highs, just to the 2022 open, which now makes it a 95% upside for a, let's call it 10% downside. Or in my worst case scenario, you'd have 20% more downside all the way back down to the 2018 peak over here, with again your upside being 95%. So everything's still skewed in favor of longs, but not catching the bottom, max long, with leverage, away we go. Like, you can't view it the same way. Spot buyers and people who buy and hold with patience will always outperform in conditions like this. Because if you're trying to add a trade, you have to have an invalidation, and then you have to take a long, and you have to be approaching it from a perspective of timing it. And I don't think timing is trying to time the market here is a good idea, because we had 3 months of upside. We can easily have 3 months, 4 months, 5 months of just sideways or low volatility, boring, choppy correction. And so you can be totally right about the bottom here, right? This can be the absolute bottom, and it can bounce up to here and then come back down, right? And then bounce up and come back down, and then go sideways and then start to move up again. So for catching the bottom, in air quotes, that might be all it moves, and then it might bleed and then bounce up and bleed. So if you're going to trade it, understand your trading approach on the long side should be probably quite short term. And that's why, like I said at the start of the video, you should really wait to see some kind of capitulation, some increase of liquidations. You want to see other people panicking and exiting, and I don't see that yet. So I see this as a good time to start buying spot, not a good time to add long trades, because I'm not seeing, like, just go back to Sol. I'm happy to buy a bit, nibble a bit of spot here on Sol, but do I see any signs of a bottom? I mean, nothing, right? Nothing here is forming a bottom yet, right? There's no signs of a bottom. There's just down, 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 down. So the way a bottom will form is it's going to have some kind of reaction, and then probably a retest. So if Solana come up to here, back to there, and held that, could that be a bottom? Sure. But we don't have any of that yet. You don't have a double bottom, you don't have a sweep, you don't have, like, we're still on the left side of the V, right? I would like to see maybe it form a sideways, sweep it out. Could that be a bottom? Yeah. But you would start to call that a bottom maybe here, and then here. Once it's had the sideways, it's swept it out, it's moved up, it's side. But like, that's what? That's a week away. That could be a week away for Solana to form that kind of bottom. So be patient. Patience will always win. The other thing as well, so I've started to buy little bits of spot here today. In my experience, it's not a good idea to then also try and get long. And when I say get long, it's like I'm buying spot to hold for 6-12 months, right? That means I'm okay with it going down another 20%, because you can't try and catch the bottom as a spot holder. But if you're then trying to go long, doing it on the same day is usually not a good idea, because your spot buys, you're actually saying, I don't think this is the bottom. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I'm buying because there's fear, because there's blood. You don't want to then double up your risk and add longs on top of that. You want to wait for the long to actually set up, right? Some kind of consolidation or some kind of bottoming pattern to form, something that would tell you, okay, the market here is likely to have a little bit of upside. And I don't see that yet. So, even if we just look on another chart here. If you're taking longs and it's short-term stuff, you want to have some kind of inefficiency to trade into. I mean, let me get the Bybit chart here. I don't really see, if you're looking at an inefficiency, there's a little bit, like there's a little gap up here that Solana might come up into, but I wouldn't be confident with that. Most of this is pretty efficient, right? It's going down, but it's bouncing. The wicks are testing. It's down, it's bouncing. The wicks are testing. If you look on the daily, there's a bit of a gap forming. I don't think that fills yet though. Like this gap that's formed here on the daily, I think that's just in the process of forming. And to target that, you'd probably want to see price go a good bit lower, and then see, okay, bounce up into that gap. Usually it has to go a lot lower, leave more inefficiency behind before bouncing up into it. ETH, there's a really nice inefficiency on ETH. Right? That's proper inefficiency forming. With ETH, there's a big daily gap. With ETH coming back into a strong support level. Right? It's sweeping out some daily levels. It's taken out these daily lows. So it has swept out these lows from the 9th, from Tuesday, 9th of Jan. There's more liquidity below here. It could touch these lows, coming down into that previous strong support level where the big wick was. So for ETH, if you go then down to your lower time frames, there's some really nice, like this is pretty capitulation type of price action. But the first long I would look at on ETH is up into this area. When can we go up and retest that? So you go lower again, and you look at it. You have to see some kind of bottom forming that can tell you that it's worth getting into a trade. And for me, I don't see it yet. For the long side, because you want to see some kind of move down, double bottom, then we can hit that inefficiency. So I'd want to see that, and then start to get long here, targeting up to there. Because you can trade these in any size you want, right? There's no liquidity constraints on ETH or Bitcoin or Sol. And at that point, a trade is just a trade. If you see a bottom and then a sweep, and you get long, and you have a tight stop loss, and you have a target that's up here, there's a 2.4 hour trade. So your trades are, that's just as valid as taking a 2.4 hour trade that's on a daily time frame. But you want to wait. You have to be more patient. Trying to do it here makes zero sense. Because where do you target? Like, buying spot here is fine, but if you get long, well, where does your stop loss go? It can't go here. That's going to get wicked out so easily. Right? Well, I'll use a wide stop. But what do you mean a wide stop? Like, it hasn't shown any kind of bottom. You can easily get stopped out here, and it still go all the way to your target. So for those longs, patience is required. Patience is required. Because even though I go even on a 1 minute time frame, there's just nothing yet that's forming to show any kind of bottom. At the very least, you would need to see it on the low time frames. Maybe sweep out that, strong reclaim above here, and then start to consolidate. Could it then move up? Possibly. But you'd need to see a big sweep down, high volume, strong reaction off it, leaving a big wick below, ideally some liquidations, to then say maybe we're finding a low time frame bottom. But I don't think we're there yet. I think this is the heavy selling capitulation type of phase. And in those phases, you just need to have patience. You'll do a lot better, in my opinion, to just focus on spot accumulation, testing and building systems, and being really selective with the longs you take. You only need one or two longs in a downtrend. I think shorting, as I've said all the way along, is negative EV, because the lower it goes, the more you are shorting into support, and you're shorting into the lows, right? The longs, the bounces that can come, you get one or two nice bounces. Yeah? You get one or two nice bounces along the way. But you don't have to take them every time. You don't have to guess where the bottom's going to be. Just wait until it seems really bad, and then you see an obvious setup. Because the setups in these bounces are quite obvious. If you look at Solana back in this 2020 move, is a good example of how it can look, where you have this all. I think that one's not available. Go all the way back. over here, right? This move on Sol. So you had a big, deep correction. And if I put on the replay, you look at it on the low time frame, here's how Sol looked on the 4 hour back then. So you had a massive sell-off. You had 57%, straight down, no bounces, right? You had a big capitulation candle on the way down, which left a massive inefficiency. So there's an inefficiency all the way up into here, right? All of this gap down. But from here, right, you didn't have to touch it here, do nothing. Shows the first bounce, comes back, high or low, tries to go lower, holds. So that's an FTR, failure to return. Low, high or low. At that point, you're then looking at how can I trade this on the long side from here up into the gap. And that's it. That's all you're looking for. And you're long wherever you get long. Let's call it there, here. There's a 3R. Even if you use a wider stop, it can still be a 2R, right? But that requires patience. The bottom formed on Solana on September the 5th, so it's Saturday. The move came the following Wednesday, so 4 days later. So as you go back to the current day, we get a fresh chart. I think we're just still in the process of that beginning to form. So if it formed today, or Wednesday, let's call it, you could then have 4 days, which is what, Sunday, that it then makes the move up. And the long you want to catch is in this part here. That's a 20% bounce. But it needs to form, right? You need to give it time. Trying to catch knives, just not good. Not good. So that's it. GM. Consolidating my positions back into the Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, and AKT. Starting to buy spot. Keeping some cash on the sidelines to buy more. And for longs, don't have any yet. Waiting for some really obvious leverage flush. Because when you get the leverage flush, last thing, I'll explain why. Like why the big leverage flush offers that opportunity. If you go back to Solana, right? All the way down, all the way in the downtrend, people are buying. Because you have to remember that people are bullish. You know, people are super bullish over here, right? Everyone's bullish, looks great. Everyone's bullish, looks great. Everyone's bullish, they're all happy. Goes higher, bullish. Higher, bullish. Then it starts to sell off, and they keep holding, right? Sells off more, they keep holding. Some people buy, oh, it's filling the inefficiency, let's buy. Keeps going, they keep buying. Then you get the big shakeout, right? So as it was coming down and down and down and down and down and down and down, when it's coming down in this tight, efficient move where it's down a bounce, down a bounce, down a bounce, down a bounce, you don't want to touch that. When you see that just gap down, that's liquidation. That leaves behind a vacuum. Smart money didn't want to buy any of this because they're like, I don't see any pain here. Then the pain comes, the big gap down. That's forced closing. When this happens, it typically goes way lower than people would expect on the low time frame. And so because Solana went so low and took out all of these stops and wicked into all this liquidity, there was a massive gap left behind, which leaves sort of like a vacuum. And suddenly, those smart money who didn't want to buy here, now they're like, well, wait a minute. Solana just had a 30% down candle, 40% in basically 6 hours. That is a time to stop selling. Even if you don't want to buy, that's not a good time to sell. You've seen capitulation. And then this is where smart money steps in, right? And some of them start to buy and it pushes up and it comes back and then it holds. And that's where people realize, okay, at this point, Solana does not want to go down anymore. And boom, away we go. So for whatever coins you're looking at, Say's want to have on my mind, right? So far, this is just Solana 2020 playing out again. This is the slow, efficient move. Yeah. This is the, yeah, it's going down, it's going down, it's going down, it's going down. So I don't want to buy this because I don't see anyone panicking and selling yet. So hope like you're going to see a bounce maybe, and sideways and sideways. But if it goes like that, and you see these 20% down candles, that's when you're going to see some nice strong reaction up. And probably it bleeds out then. And then starts to form a trading range. But you have to see some kind of, like this could be it. This could be forming, right? This is a 4-hour candle, although it closes in 20 minutes, so probably not. But you want to see 1 or 2 big red candles after an extended decline. When you've already declined by 35%, just think of it this way. Who sells after a 35% correction? No smart money, right? Just like I'm saying to you guys, why would you sell now? Why would you sell your bags? Like, would you sell your spot holdings 35% down? Doesn't make sense. If it's 35% off the highs, you should be thinking about buying, not selling. So why would it go down? Why would it sell? Why would anyone sell? Forced selling. It's forced selling. You know, smart money do not sell 35% off the highs. Not in a big, like they'll sell out if they're in profit, right? They'll scale out, they'll take profit. That's why it's kind of grinding down. But when you see a big gap down, a big red candle after 35% that then takes it down like 50%, 60%, that part is the forced selling. And that's what we're waiting to see. Waiting to see this forced selling. If we see say starting to push down into here, plus, whatever coins, that's when I'd be looking at adding some longs. But until then, you'll just be buying spot and waiting to see how the market shakes itself out.